Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is the third of 3 episodes sponsored by Bright Talk with Infobip. Today is probably my favorite episode, not to knock the other two, but I'm really passionate around enhancing operational efficiencies. And today we're going to be discussing how organizations can enhance their CX strategy while also taking a deeper look into how to upgrade that strategy as it relates to how you operate in a retail space. Super excited about our panel today. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, and then we will get into it. My name is Sherry Rosso. I am a founder of What You See Is What You Get, and also your host today. In addition, I spent 25 years at Best Buy. So again, know a little bit about this topic in operations. So let me start by throwing it over to Anta for an introduction.
Hello, my name is Anta, and I work as a product marketing manager in Infobip. And I'm mainly focusing on our AI chatbots and customer engagement solutions, which is, as you will hear, closely tied to operational efficiency and CX.
Thank you, Anta. And I will go next to Nate.
Hey, good morning. Great to be here. My name is Nate Silvia, and I am currently a CX consultant with Reputation, but have been in the CX space both on client side and vendor side for the last 10 years. So really excited to talk about this topic and how it relates to CX all over the place.
Thanks, Nate. And Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron Pyles. I'm the Senior Director of Omnichannel Operations at Best Buy. I've been here about 28 years, and my responsibilities are mainly around operations and store fulfillment and also asset protection.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I'm really excited to have a retailer on this one as well, because what we've done in the past is, of course, lean into our own experience as shoppers and, even just us as we're starting out working in different various environments. And so it's nice to have Aaron on to check us against what we think our strategies are against a real life retailer. So I just want to start things off. And again, we're just going to have great banter and have conversation for the next 45 minutes or so. It's going to go fast. And then hopefully our community, once we populate the conversation, will let us know if there's any follow-up questions. But so as it relates to the CX strategy and the needs to shift, Nate, I want to start with you. So what are today's customer expectations from retailers from your point of view and experience? And what are a few potential reasons why our customers' expectations have evolved, minus the obvious pandemic we've just, just gone through? But go ahead and include that, of course.
Yeah, I think, you could start just with the obvious. I think customer expectations have been brought to severe lows and then also brought up to extreme highs. It's very interesting how our daily lives shape our expectations of the people we buy goods and services from. And so, during the pandemic, it's like, hey, big delivery retailers needed to step up, and our experience from suddenly ordering, groceries was super high. Right. But I think we're also very surprised when we get into a retail situation or a services situation and the experience is good. We're like, whoa, that's way better than I thought it was going to be. And it feels like it's evolved when people are bringing stuff to us, and definitely de-evolved when we have to go in search of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, throwing it over to you for a second. So how does the rise of the online platform change the store experience?
Wow. So we went from having curbside pickup in a handful of locations, basically to overnight expanding it to all of our stores when the pandemic hit. So something that really got us to focus on our efforts for the fulfillment side, in which ways we might not have done in the past so quickly. And we had everyone in the organization kind of focusing on that. And with that, we were able to expand that to, basically the entire nation, with very few exceptions in some areas. Additionally, we've used our stores for a while as actual shipping locations. So we went from, an X number of standard distribution centers to now, over 1,000 areas where we can actually get products to customers. So we've certainly had to be nimble and flexible as the consumer needs and platform shift has changed.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. It's almost as hard as training your customers not to call your physical stores, right? Something that certainly Aaron and I have dealt with at Best Buy, but is pretty well known. And this is Anta, maybe a good segue to you to add to this conversation around digital transformation and the use of AI and chatbot. And how do you, because in this case of when we're talking about a changing platform, we're training our customers to do something differently in both situations, right? So how did we leverage digital, Anta?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that that is what has been happening in the past few years. And we are basically here talking about call deflection. So as you said, customers are used to contact with business on usually on basically two channels, and that's phone or email. And none of those are efficient and scalable en masse, especially when you're talking about email that takes a few days to get a response, or phone call, which lines get pretty clogged. And this is where AI automation is definitely crucial, and we have seen it explode over the past few years. Because to be able to offer your customers a chatbot that will instantly recognize intent, provide answers in a second, which is scalable and deployable on the channels your customers are using, that is something that has been invaluable for consumers.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue. So Aaron, I'm going to go to you around expectations with personalization. So when we've retrained our customers and our customers are shopping differently, we obviously have to reprioritize in the marketplace. But as consumer expectations for personalizations of retailers and brands change, how can organizations update their strategy?
That's a great question. And yes, you're absolutely right. Consumer expectations certainly continue to rise. And some Accenture research tells us that about 2 out of 3 customers feel like companies aren't responding fast enough to their needs. So we think a customer experience strategy needs to be continuously anchored to those evolving needs and the wants of the customers. It's really the only way to ensure brands deliver differentiated value and adapt as needs and expectations increase, which, as I mentioned before, happens constantly. Pardon me. So a company's approach staying connected to customer needs in many ways. And the ones that don't do anything are the ones with outdated strategies and outdated customers that are disappointed. So our CX strategy is really centered around making customers feel appreciated, confident, and excited, because we know through consistently measuring those feelings and how our customers behave, that leads to higher customer engagement, frequency of interactions, retention, and brand love. So, and of course, better business results.
And in person versus virtual. So Nate, in terms of enterprise strategy around in general, what you're seeing in the marketplace, what you're hearing out there from industry, what are customers' expectations still with in person versus virtual?
Boy, I still think people are leaning towards more virtual. Although we've started to see, I think, people go back into the world and do that. But what I think is important is how some of these larger organizations, Best Buy, of course, being one of the ones that's really good at this, is listening to the feedback of their customers, right? So we can understand how to kind of bridge that gap, because we talked about curbside pickup as it related to the pandemic and moving forward, but it has totally changed how we look at this, and with feedback being a gift like it is, I think that helps us bridge what we're looking for. But to me, it seems it's still a very virtual experience out there, because we can customize what we want in that experience more so than walking into a store, brick and mortar, and seeing what they have and leaving if they don't. There are very few times when we're on, an e-commerce site where we can't find anything that we want. And so I think we're still in that space. We just have to be cognizant of, are those spaces listening to our feedback and what we want to get out of it?
Yeah, I would add to, I'm having lots of conversations with a number of different organizations, and I'm still quite surprised at how few really kick off their strategies with direct customer insight. It's actually a bit shocking to me. As shocking as not starting with an employee roundtable or an employee opinion or voice in terms of how to match your customer need with your employee need. The opinion of one, maybe two, given Aaron and I have a very similar background. An employee efficiency comes from technology. So if you can remove a pain point for an employee in a physical brick and mortar location, you're doing it because you're adding a technology. So what I loved what you were just talking about, and this can segue into our tools and tech piece too, is how do those technologies actually remove how do we continuously improve with technology, not only just for customers in the CX strategy, but for employees in locations when, let's face it, it is a lot of digital. Customers are still choosing to not necessarily shop in stores as much as they had. And that's just a general industry, right? So we know that some customers probably just prefer to shop online. So what technologies are making it easier for them to do that?
Mhm.
And
So,
anything type in. Yeah.
yeah, so I would say that first, we are now living in the era, let's say, of impatient customers. So we all want everything, we want it now. We don't want to wait. And even a few minutes waits on the phone will decrease our experience drastically. So touching on the point of improving employee experience, I would say that automation, as much as it helps the customers to get instant responses, helps the agents answering those queries, because most any business, and we have seen it across the globe and across the industries, there are a lot of, let's say, low value, high volume queries. Typically, basically the same question that customers are asking and live agents have to answer. And by automating those, finding those most common things and automating them, first, the life of the employees much more easier, because they are then dealing with more meaningful, more fulfilling, interesting tasks instead of repeating same old, same old. And for the customers, they don't have to wait and can get instant response. So this is definitely what I would say the technology is definitely improving both employee and customer experience at once.
So, Anta, what tools and technology, if you're running your own company, are you investing in?
Yeah, well, definitely chatbots, chatbots, and especially AI ones. They have been used usually for customer service area, because they can handle a lot of most common use cases in retail as well as other industries. But returning an item, asking common questions about delivery and things like that. So everything can be solved at once. But I would also definitely recommend customer engagement software, because it's also crucial to engage with the customers, but do it automatically in a smart way with the things like product recommendations or cart abandonment use case. So cart abandonment, I mean, it's pretty common use case in which event is registered when somebody puts something in the cart and then doesn't purchase it, and then he enters automation flow to to get him to buy. And I think that's pretty interesting ones that can really increase both revenue and experience.
Yeah, that's great. Nate, anything to add there in terms of tech that you're seeing or hearing out there that's that would be a priority, I would say, if you're building from scratch a CX strategy?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is customers are they're talking everywhere, right? There's not a continuous channel anymore, right? It's not a one-way conversation. Aaron could tell you they're leaving reviews places. They are answering surveys. they are blasting you either in a good way or not so good way on social media. And we need to listen to all of those things, right? And they're, shameless plug for, Reputation, who does a really good job doing that. But that is certainly an important strategy, right? We can no longer survive on just a survey tool, right? We need to be listening to feedback everywhere. And that should be part of a strategy of how to not just engage with customers, but to acquire new customers and to retain customers as well, which is, super important.
Yeah. Aaron, anything to add?
Yeah, I think as our consumers continue to migrate kind of digitally and return, and some return in the store post-pandemic, I think we have to really focus on making sure that the experience across all the channels is as seamless as can be, right? So you don't call the phone center and have to tell your story and go into a store and tell your story, pardon me, and then go online and tell your story. So like having the right technology to enable that up-to-date data about a consumer that really allows them to start their journey in one channel and continue to complete in another is work that, we continue to do here. And it actually will continue to be valuable as folks seek to serve customers kind of where and how they want to be served.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, being where the customers are and enabling by it is just key. And every retailer should hold that kind of as their North Star, I think, when attempting to answer that question. And I think that's also how brands avoid forcing customers into the experience that the brand wants versus the experience that the customer wants. So I don't think it should be retailers that are determining kind of that balance between virtual and in person. It should be the consumers based on, like you said, that insight. And I think a good example of how we can balance the buying experience is providing the same level of expertise in the physical space and also virtually through a video chat, through virtual store and our experts and what have you. So it's really about letting the customer kind of dictate where we as an organization need to go from a virtual versus in-store standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one thing that I've said forever and ever, I feel like, and I've definitely mentioned it on this series, is that I think of the customer experience as a thread. And there are, the goal is to not break the thread. And the thread is very thin and very, sensitive, if you will. Yeah. It's a thread, right? So where along that thread can things fall apart? And what Aaron, what you're all saying is really very important, which is anywhere. It can break anywhere. And so you build your strategy around where do you think those things are going to fall apart? And one of those places is the human interaction in a brick and mortar. So how do you make sure that you're taking the guesswork out of the employees' hands and providing a solution so that they may free up their time and focus on the relationship that they're building with the person who decided to get out of their bunny slippers, right? And go to your location and actually show up and take up air in your building, because we want to reward those people for coming in. It takes a lot these days. It's so easy not to, right? Self-serve, contactless, which in a lot of cases is stuck around. I love it. I personally would much rather curbside pickup than go into a store. And if I go into a store, I think you don't fall all over me, because I also hate that. But there's a balance, right? Of let me know if you need anything. So when we kind of pivot into that, what tasks are best delegated? And Aaron, maybe I'll throw this to you. As you're thinking about continuous improvement in a brick and mortar, what tasks should we be looking at solving with a customer experience strategy that involves tech or tools?
Sure. I want to get to that question, but can I touch a little about something
absolutely
around the employee experience there? So for us, training our retail employees to be customer obsessed and focus on the solutions that satisfy the actual customer needs or the interaction versus being focused on selling a specific thing is something that we're working on as we strive to meet the needs. And the one thing I'll add to this is that the employee experience is critical to delivering the customer experience. And if the teams aren't engaged, of course, they'll never be able to deliver the experiences that make our customers feel those things. And I think that leaders need to do a handful of things, right? They need to inspire and create a space for employees to innovate and anticipate customer needs. They need to be able to listen to employees, to use, like you said earlier, through listening sessions, and empower them to do what's right for the customer. They should be breaking down barriers, right? Policies, tools, and giving them the ability to make some decisions around servicing the customer. And then, frankly, aligning strategic priorities in the organization and investment decisions to help with the needs of our customers. So that's kind of my point of view on the employee experience relative to the customer experience.
Awesome.
That's huge. And I'll just jump in real quick. And Sherry just smacked me, but it's changed a little bit, right? Where it started as we just need this one thing, we just need this one piece of feedback, we just need this one little thing, and now it's an experience ecosystem, right? To where people are starting to realize, maybe if I was nice and trained my employees and give them some information, it might actually help our customers do more for us, right? And do more with us and stay with us longer and create that sense of loyalty. And I think Aaron, what you were saying is give them the ability to provide a solution, not the thing, right? I can't tell you how many times we've gone and looked for a new TV or something, and they're like, well, that there's a TV and that would work for you, right? And it's providing a solution that we're looking for, as simple as that is, right? Especially in the last 2 years, like some of those things were pretty important to people. And if we can give them provide them the right experience ecosystem, it's only going to, benefit customers. Although we certainly want to benefit, employees and help them stay longer. It helps that ecosystem chug along a little bit more smoothly.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Anta, as I think about the returns of products or the something went wrong, when we talk about AI, chatbot, artificial intelligence, one of the best ways, I don't know if you agree or disagree, in how to leverage that would be, boy, something went wrong, and I've got whatever it is that I've purchased, and I'm having trouble.
Yeah. Well.
Go ahead, please. No, go ahead, please.
Okay. So I would say that here the way the tech can best help is there are two ways. In one way, it can possibly solve the issue by offering most common solution to that problem, and in another one, it can shorten the distance to the solution by collecting all the information needed before it reaches a human. So we can never expect any tech to be 100% in a box without any human involvement. But the chatbot, for example, will be able to ask a customer question about the product. What's wrong with your TV? Did you try to reset it? Okay, take a picture of it, and then transfer it to a human agent who will take over and wrap it up in a fraction of time needed before. And one more thing that I would like to mention, Nate and Aaron already touched on that, and that's the channel. So with the use of digital channels, like WhatsApp, like Viber, or Apple messages for business, so there is a lot of different digital channels that customers are already comfortable using because they're using it to communicate with their friends, family, and so on. So by accessing those channels, first, the adoption is much easier and faster than in traditional channels, but also the rich features are something that is valuable for a business, like to be able to communicate, send and receive photos, locations of a store, for example, or anything like that. It's a really huge boost.
Yeah, and you're reliant upon a database of customer issues to be tracked to solve some of those things. Is that accurate, Anta? Or how does that? So my experience with chat, I'm sure, is like the rest of yours, which is you kind of know when you're dealing with a bot versus a human. So is that technology improving? Are we making, improvements in that tech so that it doesn't feel so, robotic? It's not personal. And so even if you start with a chat bot, Are there things that are being done to improve that interaction? Does anyone have any experience with that?
So first, if I can only just mention that, yes, you are right. Usually you're all aware that you are talking with a bot, but now with NER functionality, named entity recognition, the chatbot can recognize not only your intent, but also specific entities in your message. And you can make a whole conversational experience, like, so it's best practice always to tell our customer that they're talking with a bot. We are not out to cheat anyone, but you can make it more conversational. So it's not only press 1 for this, 2 for this, but it can really feel like a natural conversation. And that's another point that's hitting the retail industries. It's a conversational commerce. So by those channels allowing payment options, this is something that is we are seeing more and more demand for, and is going to probably take the world pretty soon, is the ability through a chat to ask about products and instantly purchase them without ever leaving your WhatsApp channel, for example. So this is something interesting to watch out in the coming years.
Well, I think we call that Alexa at our house, and I'm sure she's going to pipe up any second from the next room. But yeah, that's exactly what that is, right? So it's out there. It's just a matter of how do we utilize it. So kind of staying on the same the same topic, of course. Are there any best practices or examples out in retail industry that come to mind when we think about how we improve our customer experience? I know fast and free keeps coming to my head for customers. I feel like that is, if that's not part of your strategy, I'm sorry. Fast and free. I was shocked the other day when I put something into a cart and I saw a $5.99 shipping charge. I was like, actually, I abandoned the cart. I couldn't believe it. And trust me, I can afford $6, but I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm not paying for shipping. It's got to be somewhere else. And I found it somewhere else that I was a member of with Google for free shipping. So how do you guys feel about that? Any best practice examples?
I think it's tricky. Again, fast and free is not bad. It certainly should be a strategy for so many things. I can tell you though that the problem that we have today is we all have too many choices, right? It makes it very difficult for us to customize our own experience, and I think a lot of the times that's on us because it's not, hey, if you want to go and if I want to go and buy a necktie, there's 100 stores I could drive to buy a necktie, and I will drive past 3 or 4 stores to go to the one that I like. And not because those 3 or 4 stores I pass don't have the same thing, but because I feel like I'm getting the best experience. Yeah. And I put my loyalty, which is still important to me as a customer, into that organization. So I think we have so many choices where, like you said, Sherry, I found something different. Even though it was the exact same product, I went somewhere where they treated me just better enough that I was able to make that decision. So choice plays a huge role in how we define our own customer experience. And I think that, can be a really great thing for companies that are listening and collecting and sharing that insight.
That's awesome. Aaron, were you going to add anything?
No, I was just remembering that I didn't answer one of the questions you asked me earlier because
go for it. So super unscripted, my guy. So go for it.
But what I would say, around that fast and free thing, I think when you are fast and free, you need to take credit for it. And here's an example. Install some Ring cameras at his house, and so I was there for the weekend. I was like, "Hey, Pops, go ahead and place an order for these, and when they get here, I'm here for a couple of days, so I'll help you install them." And he ordered them, and he looked at me and he said, "Son, they're going to be here today." Right. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. We do that." And so he was excited to see that. And I think there's a cool element of surprise when you delight them and say, actually get it to your door right now, which is some pretty cool stuff. But
yeah. And not to toot your own horn, of course, and being a bit biased also, spending that much time with Best Buy, but They're really doing well in this space. I've found that I can't get things faster from a consumer electronics retailer than I can get from Best Buy. It doesn't even matter for the most part where we are, even with Amazon. So
the loyalty that creates, right? Just from that perspective, when I feel like we're just going to be like, we're going to rain praise on Best Buy, but I feel like, right, Aaron, I feel like if I am looking for something in that regard, that's like your go-to, right? There are definitely other places that you can go, but because the experience has been really good, why are you going other places, right? I'm not asking Alexa, and I'm sure 5 of them just went off to send me a TV, right? I certainly want to have that experience with Best Buy, and I think it's again, it's that personalized retail experience where you feel really comfortable and you're going to put your loyalty. I just hope that customers, not in just a retail setting, but all customers who provide some sort of product or service, are listening to that type of feedback that we're giving, because we could provide all the data in the world, but if we're not pulling insight from that data, we're not getting anything. So insight is always going to be greater than data. And companies, they call it customer experience for a reason, right? We talk about CX first, and we have the opportunity to really start to shape how we want the experience to be. Aaron mentioned that, it's not up to the retailer. They're there to guide us, but we're there to show, okay, if we want to make change, it's really up to us to provide that feedback to the retailer in all of these different channels. So it can be, we're a pretty powerful group of consumers, and I think we need to remember that.
And smart. Anta, how about internationally? Who do you see that is doing it well? And then I also want to give everyone an opportunity to share other experiences you've had shopping, or as other than maybe some of the obvious. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Anta, how about over internationally? Any that stand out for you?
Any what? Sorry, I'm not sure I got you.
As a consumer internationally, are there brands or any best practices that stand out that are more international brands for doing it well?
Yeah, I can't think of anything specific.
Okay. Aaron or Nate, any other experiences, or Anta, your own experiences that you've had that you've really enjoyed and want to share?
I'll go.
Go for it.
Sure. There's a company out there, a little airline called Delta, and you may have your own opinions on airlines these days, but I actually really love the personalized experience I get from Delta. Pardon me. If I happen to need to call, which I don't have to very often because I can do everything in the app, it says, hey, welcome back, Aaron. I see you're calling about this today, or I see you've got a flight scheduled and there's been a reroute. You get the information there as it's happening. You have the options in the app, which is very intuitive and easy to use. It's very personalized, and I can either choose to interact with a human or I can choose to interact with my device. And really get the service that I need. And I think they do and actually just an amazing job at knowing the customer and kind of carrying that, to your point, Sherry, thread all the way through the experience, right? I know when my bag is landing. I know my bag is on board the plane. So it's, for me, I just absolutely love it. And again, the flight circumstances today notwithstanding, I think that's a great customer experience for me.
Awesome. Yeah, Nate, you want to share? Or go ahead, Anta.
No, I would just want to touch on that example. I love it. Unfortunately, in Croatia, we don't have airlines with such capabilities. But this is actually an excellent example of what we have seen as a pretty common challenge in retail, especially. That's data siloing. So usually what we've seen in our customers, they have different systems for different use cases. So they would use one software for marketing automation, one for customer service, and they collect all this data, and they have mountains of data that they didn't use properly. Yep. And this is, I think, where Infobip comes into play. And what we do well is by having a really high breadth of solutions, horizontally and vertically, and by incorporating like marketing automation, customer engagement, chatbot solution, cloud contact center, where agents can interact over digital channels and so on. So and at the center of all those is one customer data platform, which can collect all the user attributes, information, and so on. So yeah, with solutions such as this, you can have a use case, Aaron, as you explained, like where you really know your customer, and when you can really offer him value.
Anta, I love what you just said, and what you just touched on is all around the tech investment and CDP or CRM, having that centralized hub to bring all of that information together. It is not that there's a shortage of information, it's that there's no way to get to the right information at the right time for the right purpose. So what I think I hear you say is that, you know, when we go back to that CX strategy and what is it important for retailer, any organization to invest in, data analytics and a CDP platform or CDP or CRM, you know, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. You know, Nate or Aaron, I know certainly Aaron has experience with this too, but would you all agree that is an investment, if you haven't already done it, to get yourself in there?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely an investment, and it's especially challenging, I think, for global companies. I'm not sure about Best Buy, but are they only US based, or sorry for appearing ignorant, we don't have it in my part of the world.
Yes, we're North America based, yes.
Yeah, and it makes so I guess it's a little bit. I mean, of course, it's challenging because it's a huge retailer, but for the companies that are global and have on every continent with people speaking different languages, it can be even more of a challenge to have all the data. So they will often use different systems, and the challenges pile on.
Yeah.
Totally right. You know, what I want to add to that is that not only is it difficult, it's also really expensive, right? So you have to, you know, first invest in the actual systems, but then you've got these, you know, multi-year projects in which you have to, you know, migrate data, collapse data, get rid of duplicates, you know, project teams, data teams, and it's not as easy as saying, well, let's just compile them all together and dump them in a big folder. I mean, there really is a lot of work to your point, to combine the multiple silos of the same person. Like, how many times does Aaron Pyles exist in the Best Buy database, and get all that down together. And then, of course, the retraining of the employees on all the systems they used to use to the new system. And so it's an adventure for sure to get that done.
It's huge. A single source of truth is like an insanely difficult implementation, right? As someone who's been on, like, I'm talking about when we're showing a customer a new customer experience platform, saying, hey, these would be great for you. These are, you know, we really think we can upgrade your CX game. And they say, hey, we've chosen to change our CRM from like HubSpot to Salesforce. And we're like, okay, well, then we'll talk to you in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we'll come back to you, because like Aaron said, there's 50 of us in every one of these. And it's so difficult to get that hub where it's usable information and not, like, again, just data. And so that's a tricky one. So the better technology we can use, and the more we can listen to each other and our colleagues on best practices, we can really start to personalize how we're able to, you know, keep track of that data. And that's so important.
Yeah. And the importance in beginning a CX strategy is to find out what your customers' needs are. I don't know how you start a customer experience strategy or a customer journey unless you know what your customer needs. And oftentimes, you know, there's an expectation for local as well. I want to spend a couple minutes on that. I know we didn't prep for this conversation, but I know you all have something to say about it. And Anta, certainly globally, there's a global and a local solution, right? So how local do you go with a company strategy? Do you allow, and on top of that, how does that get prioritized within your digital space? Because there are a million different options to serve a local customer, and they're all nuanced, and they maybe are adding to this problem. So it could make your CRM solution 2-year plan, 2 years for the base foundation of something, and then you're nuancing all over the place because there are local strategies. Any thoughts on that? Any experience you want to share with that one? I know it's so new still.
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely a global company. We have offices in over 80 countries.
Yeah.
So, and this is because we have seen the need for local people on the ground that understand local customs, local laws, of course, and it's much easier to develop and build solutions once you are on the territory. And it's really, really interesting and different how different regions are first responding to new tech. So when we launched chatbots as a new solution, we have seen tremendous growth in Asia and Pacific and in Latin America, but slower in US and Europe at the first. But then, of course, it started to catch up. And what I believe, when you go to the local level, it's different. Of course, each region prefers different channels. So, for example, in Korea, they use KakaoTalk, and most of us haven't even heard of it. And in Europe, it's WhatsApp. Eurasia is Viber. So, it's, I think, very important to go down to the local level so you can understand customers. And we have a lot, let's say, global clients in which we will work with their HQ office, and for each region we will develop let's say a different chatbot to help customers, and for different regions the chatbot will have different personality. In some there will be a more laid back and funny, in the other regions it will be more stricter, let's say, and on different channels. And those, especially when you're talking about databases and having one joint database, it's often very difficult and expensive, as Aaron pointed out, to integrate with all the other systems. But by having, let's say, one in, let's say, Infobip's CDP, you can collect all the data from all of your regions and have it in one place, and lead generation, customers, and everything. So I think that's yeah, it's definitely a plus.
So why do you think the US is slower to adopt?
I think it was slower to adopt chatbot specifically on digital media because my guess,
It's a guess, yeah.
Yeah, because there wasn't any, let's say, fairly dominant channel. So in, let's say, Brazil, 19, I think 5 or 8% people are using WhatsApp. And in US, I think it's a bit more fragmented. So a lot of people are using Messenger, they're using Apple messages, and it's a bit different. So it's more difficult for brands to develop and cover all of their customer base.
It's like Nate said, choices. Too many choices.
Always. Right?
Exactly.
It's so interesting. And from a local perspective, and I'm going to use Best Buy as an example. If there's something that I've purchased and it is a curbside item, I'm going to get a text message from the Best Buy that's,
right
there. And it's definitely not coming from someone, saying, okay, Nate, your order's ready and I'm going to text you right now. But it feels more personal because it's that local feel, right? And so I think it's important to have all of those channels, right? If you're, and I know it's not possible, but if you're placing an order on Twitter, then a tweet is the best way to get back to somebody. If you're placing an order on a mobile device, then a text is going to be the best way to get back to people. And so having all of those available channels to listen and communicate, hugely important. Again, feedback is everywhere. We need to take advantage of it. And that's what I like specifically in the US. We're slow, we're super innovative, and but we do have far too many choices when it comes to technology, and it's hard to get us on the same page with anything, let alone a piece of technology.
Aaron, anything to add before I move on?
Yeah, for sure, actually. So when you talk about localization, I think there's a word that pops to mind for me, and it's the word innovation. And I think it goes beyond allowing local innovation, which is what we've done for years, to supporting innovation. And to me, that's a very different step, right? So when I'm supporting innovation, now I'm providing boundaries to the local leaders on what decisions they can make. So boundaries on those decision rights. I'm providing some decision support for them, whether it's financial support or financial decision support, or whether marketing decision or customer insight support. And then this is probably the biggest one that I think organizations struggle with. And that's creating corporate teams who are bought into supporting that localization. If you think about, the big machine up here in Richfield, we're good at creating the same experience, the same look and feel in the stores, but not necessarily great at understanding the fact that the customer in Miami every 3 weeks might come off of a cruise ship from a particular country and have a need for XYZ product and always coming looking for it, right? We would only know that, to your point, Sherry, by having those listening sessions with our employees. And so we have to make sure that we're listening and then creating the environment where if we want to decide to have as an example, an altered assortment somewhere, we provide the support for those teams to get it and then to, measure it to see if it's actually working well. So I think that innovation support is key in localization.
Yeah, I love that best practice. So I'm going to, because I skipped Nate and I want to make sure I go back. Nate, did you have any other, besides Best Buy? I feel like, we've hit that pretty hard, but any other best in class or personal experience you would like to share that you've had that you think somebody's doing it well?
I think it comes down to brands that we really like. Yeah. And I think when we see a text, an email, or something from the brand that we really like, we tend to gravitate more towards that thing. In my house, I have 4 kids. They really love Nintendo. And so if they have a really great experience, buying something on, their digital storefront, they're going to gravitate, right? And they get a thank you message like, oh, these guys know me, right? They know everything about me. It's like, they know that I wanted to play Super Mario Brothers. It's amazing. And so I think they do a really good job. I think that there are some really great, retailers that do a great job. There are some local, I know it sounds silly, but there are some local here in Salt Lake City grocery stores that do just a phenomenal job of making you want to come back. Like if I can go somewhere where I feel like, yeah, maybe I'll pay a couple bucks more for, the best produce that I can buy, that's where I'm going to go. And I think there's some really, really good ones here that do that too, but it's not limited to, a giant purchase or, something like that. Sometimes it could be as simple as, I was supposed to bring strawberries for the strawberry shortcake on Sunday and I totally didn't. So now I need to go to this place. Right. And I'm going to go to the place where I got
the strawberries are going to be the best.
Exactly. And it's all about that experience that we can have right away. That keeps us coming back for the next thing.
I'm going to share one, and I'm even surprised that I'm saying it myself. And this is not a slam on Walmart whatsoever, but I will tell you, I had been looking for a PlayStation 5 for my son since prior to Christmas. And, Nate, you have 4 kids. You said Nintendo, but let's assume they wanted a PS5 as well. Couldn't get one. Anyway, so
we finally found it, but man.
Same. But here's what I was impressed by. So I have joined every club that you can imagine to try to get to the front of the line. I actually stood in a mall. It was the Mall of America, which we have here in the Twin Cities. And I stood in line for my kid. I'm like, mom of the year, can I get some, high five, whatever. I was the 12th person in line and they had 10 tickets. Oh. I didn't get one, but I did sign up for Walmart Plus and I got in the virtual queue 4 times and I never got one until the last time when they finally, Anta, you will appreciate this. They finally put a bot I am not a robot in place. And it was the first time they were able to weed out the machines that bought up all the PS5s. And it was and I got one. So I wanted to say thank you to Walmart for that. And I have not seen that anywhere else. And I'm telling you, I've gone everywhere, inclusive of Best Buy, to try to find a PS5 for him. And we finally got one through Walmart because they did that. It wouldn't have happened otherwise because of all the bots buying up all the electronics. So anyway, I thought I'd share that and give a little plug. Not that they need it, my little plug, but
such a good example though, right? Because how hard must have been that customer experience feedback that Sony has been getting, not just the retailers, like people are hammering on Sony for not getting enough. And Aaron, you dealing with inventory at Best Buy, what a disaster.
And I have to be honest with you guys, like, and Aaron knows me really well, knows I'm not a Walmart shopper. Like, I will avoid at all costs. I'm actually really impressed and have gone into the store a couple of times, and I do not shop at Walmart. So I believe it is a great example of how you invest in, you take your customer feedback, you invest in technology, you leverage your AI, and you turn a customer who was otherwise like, no, not a good experience for me normally. So I thought I'd share that one. It was a pretty big deal in our household, let me tell you.
You know that we have a process like that now as well. So we put you in a queue, and then
that's good. That's great.
You have to validate. I might not quote perfectly, but we send you an email as well while you're in queue, and then you have to validate and put some codes in, and
which is amazing.
It's smarter than the bots. It has been. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on it. So.
Yeah, and I think because of the supply chain, I'm not really sure, but anyway, it was a great experience. So, but yeah, thank you, Aaron, for adding that in. So let's just wrap this up. I want to go around real quick and just say, finally, is there any advice or anything that you would share that we haven't touched on? I'm going to start with you, Anta, and then we'll bring it home.
Yeah, so basically, I think I mentioned pretty much all of it, but if I had to sum it up, to improve customer experience, I would definitely try to automate everything that can be automatized to improve, to save them time, because that's everything it's really important to not waste anybody's time, of course. And I would stick with time savings.
Love it. Aaron?
Yeah, so you asked me earlier kind of how can we decide which tasks to delegate to automation in the stores. And, I think that one for me, you really have to do some value targeting on this one. At first, I think you have to ask yourself, where am I spending the most non-customer facing dollars in an area, in one area? And then look across and see, are there other folks across the enterprise that are focusing efforts on that same thing? Corporate support center, corporate teams, et cetera, and then focus your automation there so you can solve multiple teams' problems and efficiency at once. You have an example, which Sherry, you may remember a project that we worked on for a while, which is the electronic shelf labels. Right, we literally spent an insane amount of hours every week in every store taking down paper, printing paper, putting up paper. Right, and that required people at the stores to do it. That required folks at corporate to design and print and ship the paper. We had to receive the stuff into the stores. So by installing those electric shelf labels, we eliminated so much of that work, so much of the expense in the shipping, and we automated and, as I said, helped multiple folks across the organization. So kind of value target, see where you can get the most impact. I know, genius idea there, but then really look at it across the enterprise and see which ones make sense the most.
Yeah, that's an exceptional example, and one where we can both say we've got a few gray hairs from. Nate, how about you?
I think we just need to remember that feedback really is everywhere. It comes from all channels. It comes from everywhere. And if we can listen to what that is and really ingest it, and then we can make change as companies and organizations, right? Our customers, they do want to work with us. I'm a firm believer in that. I think we often make it difficult for them to do that. And so I think by really taking a hard look at your customer experience strategy, saying, how am I reaching out to my customers? How am I asking them what they think? And how am I responding to that feedback is so important. And I will say again and again, insight is greater than data all day.
Love it. Love it so much. And I will add just an exclamation point on that. Make sure you're engaging the folks that are closest to your customer as well. Do not sit in our, as we've heard many, many times over our years of experience with retail, in the ivory tower, pushing down things to those that are closest to the customer, is really to get their feedback as well. I want to thank you all so much. I think this has just been amazing, and such a great conversation around employee efficiency with CX strategy and where the two come together. I love the insights that we were able to gain. I want to thank you all so much for your time. And then I also just want to remind our audience out there, please tune into the other 2 episodes as well. And I'll also give a plug to Bright Talk. There are so many great conversations and talks out there that are just really meaningful for our customer experience strategy and what we're going through, not only as consumers, but as business owners and, of all kinds. So again, thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.